Welcome back to our channel where we share with you the most amazing stories that have happened in the real estate world. Today, we will be telling the story of HOA cop, who kicks black woman out of her own pool only to find out she is the owner of the entire property. Make sure to stay until the end because this story will leave you speechless. Karen, a middle-aged white woman who lived in a beautiful neighborhood with her husband, had always been bothered by the presence of a black family that moved in next door about 2 years ago. The family consisted of a mother, her son, and his girlfriend. Even though they tried their best to stay out of Karen's way, she couldn't help but treat them like trash and try to make their lives a living hell. One day, things got even worse when the police showed up at the neighbor's house because of a noise complaint from Karen. When the officers knocked on the door, it was the neighbor's son who opened it. They asked to speak to whoever was in charge, and he told them that his mother was the head of the household. However, one day she took things too far when she accused the neighbor's daughter-in-law of being a prostitute after seeing her in a bikini. This caused a huge fight between the two women and things got really ugly. The neighbor was furious about Karen's accusations and confronted her, leading to an even bigger confrontation. She was so outraged that she decided to take matters into her own hands. Meanwhile, the neighbor had no idea that Karen had filed a complaint against her daughter-in-law with the police, accusing her of prostitution. She was shocked when the police showed up at her door and arrested her for allegedly engaging in sexual activity in her pool. This was devastating for her, because she had never done anything wrong, and it was all because of Karen's lies. In court, the neighbor fought for her freedom and tried to prove her innocence. She presented evidence that disproved Karen's accusations and showed that she had never engaged in prostitution. Despite this, Karen stood firm on her story and claimed that she had seen the neighbor's daughter-in-law with men at her pool, and that she was certain that she was a prostitute. As the trial dragged on, the neighbor became increasingly frustrated and angry at Karen's false accusations. She felt that her life was being ruined, and that she had lost control of her future. But as it turned out, justice was on her side. At the end of the trial, the judge ruled in her favor and dismissed all charges against her. He stated that there was no evidence to support Karen's accusations, and that she had fabricated the entire story. This was a major victory for the neighbor, as she was finally cleared of all wrongdoing and her reputation was restored. However, the battle between her and Karen was far from over. The neighbor was determined to make Karen pay for what she had done to her, and she had a few tricks up her sleeve. First, she decided to expose Karen's true colors to the entire neighborhood. She went door to door, speaking to her neighbors and telling them about Karen's false accusations and malicious behavior. She wanted them to know the truth about their fellow resident and hoped that they would see her for who she really was. As the neighbor continued to speak out against Karen, more and more people started to learn the truth about her. It became clear that she was a liar and a troublemaker, who had been causing problems in the neighborhood for years. People began to question why they had not seen through Karen's facade and realized how toxic she was. One day, the neighbor decided to take things a step further and file a lawsuit against Karen for defamation and emotional distress. She had kept recordings of Karen's false accusations and had witnesses who could testify to the damage that Karen had caused. With strong evidence on her side, the neighbor felt confident that she would win the case and make Karen pay for her actions. As the lawsuit dragged on, Karen became increasingly desperate. She tried to settle out of court, offering to pay the neighbor a sum of money to drop the charges. However, the neighbor refused to accept the offer, wanting to make an example out of Karen and prevent her from harming anyone else. Finally, the day of the trial arrived, and both sides presented their evidence and arguments to the court. The neighbor's lawyer argued that Karen had acted with malice and had caused her client severe emotional distress, which was evident in the medical records that were presented as evidence. In contrast, Karen's lawyer tried to argue that her accusations were true, and that she had only said what needed to be said. But as the trial progressed, it became clear that Karen's story was full of inconsistencies and that she had fabricated much of what she had said. Witnesses that Karen had called to support her claims were unable to provide concrete evidence, and their testimony was riddled with doubts. As the defense's case fell apart, Karen's lawyer had no choice but to make a final plea for mercy for his client. He argued that Karen had acted out of frustration, and that she had not meant to hurt the neighbor emotionally. However, the judge was not convinced, and saw through Karen's lies. In the end, the judge ruled in favor of the neighbor, awarding her a substantial sum of money for defamation and emotional distress. As the news of the verdict spread through the neighborhood, everyone was shocked. They had never expected Karen to lose, and they couldn't believe that she would have to pay a large sum of money to her neighbor. Some residents felt sorry for Karen, while others were happy to see her get what she deserved. In the end, the case between the neighbor and Karen became a cautionary tale in the community, reminding everyone to be careful of the company they keep and the words they speak. Karen's actions had not only ruined her own reputation, but also that of her family. Her friends and relatives had distanced themselves from her, and she was left with nothing but her regrets and a hefty payout to her neighbor. Meanwhile, the neighbor was able to move on with her life, knowing that she had done everything she could to protect herself and her family. She had faced adversity with grace and determination, and had come out on top. The experience had brought her closer to her family and friends, and she was grateful for their support. In the following months, the neighbor decided to put the money she received from Karen to good use. She used some of it to improve her home and create a beautiful space for her and her family to enjoy. She also used some of the money to start a new business that allowed her to spend more time with her loved ones. As time passed, the memory of the ordeal with Karen began to fade away. The neighbor learned to forgive her and moved forward with her life. She continued to be a positive force in her community and used her experience to help others who had gone through similar situations. Overall, the story of the neighbor and Karen is a powerful reminder to always stay true to oneself and to stand up for what is right. No matter how difficult the situation may seem, it is always important to seek justice and never give up. The neighbor's courage and determination paid off in the end, and she was able to move on with her life, knowing that she had won the battle. So what can we learn from this story? First, we should always stand up for what is right, no matter how difficult it may seem. Second, we should never give up in the face of adversity. And third, forgiveness is always the best option, even if it is hard. By following these lessons, we can make sure that we are always true to ourselves and the people we love. Thank you for watching this story. We hope that you enjoyed it and that you learned something from it. If you liked the story, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe, so you don't miss out on any of our future videos. Also, feel free to leave a comment with your thoughts, or any stories you would like to hear from us in the future. Until next time, take care.